We're about to enter Wharfdale proper. A good vantage point is the high path that runs from Cray to Hubbardham. Before you is a classic U-shaped glacial valley, with a flat bottom and steep fell sides. A series of waterfalls tumble down the valley from Cray to feed the wharf. Always be on the lookout for rare plants that cling to the sides of the gill. This is Cray. It's really no more than a pub and a huddle of farms. The road past here goes over Kidstones Pass and down into Bishopdale. If you're around in late July in Buckden, you must come to the annual village gala. It has a traditional sheep show and sports for youngsters. But the highlight is the fell race to the top of Buckden Pike. A good 2 miles and 1,500 feet of ascent straight up from here. The winner will run there and back in around 30 minutes. Many people opt for the slightly gentler walk up Buckden Pike that follows initially another Roman road that connected the dale with the garrison at Bainbridge. On top, you'll find a memorial to 5 Polish airmen whose plane crashed here in January 1942. As we move down Wharfdale, we come to Starbotton, a small hamlet standing at a crossroads where the road that goes up the valley intersects with the tracks that cross the valley from Settle and on to Nidderdale and Bainbridge. Along these ancient drovers' roads, sheep would be driven over the moors to pasture or market. Later it was also a centre for the lead mining industry. Many of the houses here date from the late 17th century, as in June 1686 a great flood washed away the earlier ones. Kettlewell was another lead mining centre, an industry around here that dates back to the Roman times. The village grew as an important trading centre. There was a cotton mill, a corn mill and many associated trades in the village and was granted a market charter in 1320. It used to be held on the much diminished square on Thursdays. Local farmers and workers did and still do have a pint at the King's Head or at the former coaching inn the Bluebell. The Racehorses Inn opposite once used to be the stables for the Bluebell. Come to Kettlewell in mid-August when they hold the Scarecrow Festival. You'll find all types of scarecrows in all sorts of places, in different poses and as amusing set pieces. It draws adults and kids, armed with their maps to try and find all of them. The village makes an ideal base from which to tour the area. Unfortunately, it has also meant that many of the houses are second homes, pushing up property prices beyond the reach of locals. Many of the limestone cottages date from the 16th and 17th centuries. More recently, old barns have been converted into houses. Stringent planning regulations administered by the National Park means that any new developments, including any works to existing properties, have to be sympathetic to and in keeping with the village. There are around 250 permanent residents who are ever resourceful. Not wanting to lose their post office, they incorporated it in the youth hostel. For commanding views of the village and dale, walk up Topmere Road, which also looks across to Great Whernside, at 2,310 feet, the highest summit in Wharfdale, just 8 feet higher than Buckden Pike. A single-track road, which is 1 in 4 in parts, climbs Park Rake from Kettlewell before dropping down into Coverdale. There is an alternative viewpoint on the opposite fell side that necessitates a steep climb up through a rocky crevasse called the Slit. Here you're on a terrace and have good views of limestone escarpments. There are also bird's-eye views of the fields with their barns in the valley floor, enclosed by dry stone walls, many going straight up the steep fell sides. These walls were mostly built in the 18th and early 19th centuries during the land enclosures. The walls don't use any cement and are an art form in itself to build. A good wall will stand for a century or more, so always use a recognised style to pass over them. As we head towards Kilnsey, a road branches off to the right. This goes up Littondale through the hamlets of Arncliffe and Halton Gill and then via Pennygent to Ribblesdale. But that's a story in itself. Our route lies ahead and the massive overhang of Kilnsey Crag. It looks insurmountable, but climbers love it. It stands 170 feet high, and the overhang is over 30 feet, making it the largest in England. It was formed by the Littondale and Wharfdale glaciers meeting and undercutting the rock. In late August, the field opposite the crag becomes home to the biggest agricultural show in Wharfdale, when farmers from round about bring their sheep and cattle for judging. Again, a fell race, where runners run to the top of the crag and then have to negotiate a treacherous rock chimney on the return journey to the show field. Besides judging of the sheep and cattle, there are also sheepdog trials, and the day ends with harness races. It's well worth a walk around the village itself. From the mid-12th century to 1540, it was owned by the monks of Fountains Abbey 30 miles away to the north near Ripon. The hall stands on the site of the original monastic grange, a sheep farm. It must have been a fantastic sight to see thousands of sheep converging by the wharf for dipping and clipping. Most of the hall you see today dates from the mid-17th century. The unusual building in front is all that's left of the original gateway of the grange. The road going past the hall is the start of the most well-known green lane in the Dales, Mastiles Lane. It was built to connect the abbey with other lands held at Malham and beyond 5 miles away. It's a steep and long walk up, but the views are well worth it on a clear, fine day. In the village lies Kilnsey Park and Trout Farm that is open for fishermen and families to do a bit of angling. There is a well laid out walk that takes you past the trout races, the breeding areas, and a wildflower meadow with over 150 native flowers and grasses. The shop is well stocked with local produce, as well as many fresh products produced on site. Across on the other bank of the wharf, and reached via its road bridge, lies Coniston. It meets with the minor road that runs from Kettlewell to Grassington on the village green. At one time it had a school and shops, now all closed. Visit its church, St Mary's, thought to be the oldest in the Dale. It predates the Norman invasion of 1066. Close by you can climb up the steep dib. Glacial meltwater carved it out, and it's now a dry valley. It's quite hard going with a few scrambles, but when you get to the top, the view is glorious. Here you will find limestone pavement. This is where the rock has been laid horizontally and rainwater has washed away softer rock along natural joints, leaving behind solid blocks called clints, surrounded by deep channels called grikes. Have a look in, as throughout the year rare plants grow in here. You can walk 3 miles from here along part of another long-distance footpath, the Dales Way to Grassington, and look for signs of old field systems dating back to the Iron Age. You'll have to look carefully for telltale humps in the ground. Come late in an afternoon or when there's been snow so that the sun's rays catch the contours. Other signs of early occupation can be found in grass wood that you pass the top of on the walk. It is in fact 3 woods: barstow, grass and lower grass wood. They are looked after by the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and the Woodland Trust respectively. High on a commanding crag are the remnants of a Roman signalling station called Fort Gregory. Another ancient relic lies straight across the valley near Bordley, another monastic grange. Here you can see from the track a stone circle, thought to be a chambered tomb of the Bronze Age. Another Bronze Age circle can be found above Grassington village itself, Yarnbury Henge. This is an earthwork 100 feet in diameter surrounded by a ditch. This is thought to have been used for ceremonial purposes. Whilst you are up here, there is an excellent marked route with information boards around the extensive lead mining operations that were here from the 17th century until the last mine closed in the 1880s. It was a very dirty, dangerous and environmentally damaging industry. At its height in the mid-19th century, about 200 people worked here. You need to be careful as you walk around, as there are numerous unmarked pits, and the shafts can be 75 metres or more in depth. The ore mined by hand is called galena and would have had to be crushed. Initially this would have been by hand until horse and latterly water-powered mills were used. Water was also very important for washing away the lighter waste material. This forms the many spoil heaps you see that pockmark the moor. The most obvious feature is the chimney that can be seen on the skyline. It was linked to the smelt house by this very long flue that's 1,795 metres long. Lead condensed on the sides of the flue. This was the result of the galena being burnt in the furnaces. The lead would be collected by either sweeping or washing out the flue. Lead was important for roofing and pipes because it moulds very easily. Slowly the land over this 2 square mile area has started to recover, and now you only get a glimpse of the size of the operations. Now we must visit Grassington, the capital of Upper Wharfdale and a magnet for visitors. It's little unchanged, as after the closure of the lead mines, it's settled back to revolve around farming once again. But it's perfect, with its cobbled main square and maze of tiny streets to explore. For a glimpse of the past, first visit the museum on the square and learn a little about the way of farm life and local trades that used to support it. Rooms also recreate how a Dales farmhouse would have been at the turn of the 20th century. For a 2-week period in late June and early July, the square becomes a focus for the Grassington Festival, which attracts local and international artists, performing either in the square or at the intimate Town Hall and Devonshire Institute. It's just as busy in winter, when they host Dickensian weekends in the run-up to Christmas. Its highlight is the journey down Main Street of an infant playing Jesus on a donkey's back, followed by a torchlight procession. The early evening darkness gives it an especial quality and ends with communal carol singing around the manger.